Well, JD Vance just spent 3 hours on the biggest podcast in America, and in that room, he made 3 moves that are tearing the Democratic Party apart from the inside. And here's what almost everybody isn't recognizing. Trump is the hammer in this operation. He's out front. He's loud. He takes the hits. He eats every headline. And nobody in the country does it better than he does. JD Vance is the scalpel. He's not doing rallies this week. He's not doing a Sunday show. He sat down for 3 hours with Joe Rogan in front of an audience that doesn't trust cable news, doesn't trust either party, and flat out will be the deciding factor for the elections in this country for the near-term future. And in that 3 hours, JD Vance made 3 moves. Each one is aimed at a different crack in the Democratic coalition. Now, I want you to watch how it works. Number 1, JD walks into the most skeptical room in America and does something that politicians almost never do on purpose. Take a listen.
People say Donald Trump's blackmailed by Jeffrey Epstein. Who was the guy who narked on Epstein to the Palm Beach police? That's in the Epstein files.
Right.
It was Donald Trump.
He also kicked him out of Mar-a-Lago in 2005.
He kicked him out of Mar-a-Lago. It's just, again,
well, it's obvious that Epstein was a sick man.
Yes, but if people want to say we mishandled the Epstein release, guilty. We did mishandle, especially.
Yeah. So that's JD Vance telling Joe Rogan and his entire audience, hey, we screwed up. We made mistakes. Okay, that's not some press secretary walking it back 3 years and 50 news cycles later. He said it on the record to the one guy in the media who would have called him out if he tried to dodge it. And you know who doesn't do that? Every single member of the Democratic Party's leadership. I mean, come on. Every single one of them, they put in front of a microphone for the last 2 years, and they've said nothing about it. Name one. Come on. I mean, Hakeem Jeffries, he won't do it. He just spent 3 weeks defending the party's own position on Israel, and he did it to his own caucus. And he's getting split with the Democratic whip of his own party. Schumer won't do it. Folks, I'm not even going to get into the Senate floor situation with him this week. You've probably already seen the clip. But that's the first crack that Vance is working. Independent swing voters. The ones who left the Republican Party during Trump's first term, never fully trusted anybody after that. They remember exactly what it feels like when Washington, says, hey, we got that wrong. And Vance said it on purpose in the room where lying about it would have blown up in his face. So move number 2 is actually bigger, because I think this one puts him against his own side, not just the other one. So take a look at this.
Other thing about this, because there are people, you see Mike Pence, who's sort of a super hawk, my predecessor, who say this. There are people, who are super hawkish in the American system who have attacked the deal and frankly, in some ways have tried to derail the deal. And what I always say to those people is, what is your proposal? What is your actual argument? So just take the Strait of Hormuz, like the narrowest, but in some ways the most important part of this back and forth right now. Strait of Hormuz is a narrow waterway. To the extent you shut it down, you shut down 25% of the world's energy.
Yeah, so he makes a pretty compelling argument, but regardless, okay, he didn't let that, slip by accident. He said it because he wants that fight out in the open where voters can see it. Okay. Look, I ran for Congress. I know JD Vance personally, dude. He is a stellar guy. Okay. More importantly, I know what it costs a Republican to stand out and stand up and say some of the things that his people don't like, your party don't like. Tell them when they're wrong. It costs you. It costs you trust, because that's how, the establishment has this fake level of trust, fake virtue. They like to feign virtue. But it costs you. Donors, primary challenger. I mean, a lot. And Vance said it anyway. Okay. Again, on the one platform where every swing voter who was exhausted by 26 years of Middle East wars happened to be listening that day. Okay. He's not trying to win the room that already loves him. He's trying to win the guy who, potentially voted for Obama in 2012 and Trump in 2016, but's been pissed off because he doesn't think, the administration's been doing the right things. Okay. That guy does not want another war. He can't explain to his kids. And Vance just looked that audience dead in the eye and said, well, I don't either. Look, move number 3 ties the first two together because it was never really about what he said. It's about where he chose to say it. Okay? You have to consider where J.D. Vance sat down.
Cage fight at the White House.
That's right.
That's
one of the craziest experiences of my life. It must have been one of the craziest experiences of your life.
Oh yeah, it took me like 2 weeks afterwards to recover, just to go, did that actually happen? That seems
So look, at the end of the day, J.D. Vance didn't do this on Fox. He didn't do it on a Sunday morning show, with 800,000 viewers who already agree with him. He did it with the one guy who has real credibility with young men, with independent voters, with people who checked out of politics, with every cable anchor in this country wishes they had. That's a targeting decision, not an accident. I mean, you take the accountability move and the peace move, and you put both of them in front of exactly the audience that's been drifting away from both parties. That's not damage control. That's recruitment. So, look, if you want to see move number 4 before the mainstream media even notices this one, hit subscribe. Well, here's what the Democratic Party can't answer. They can't out-humble a guy who just admitted a mistake in hostile territory. And you may say, well, Joe Rogan's not hostile territory. Joe can be if you lie. If you aren't authentically honest with him, he can be. So don't think that JD walked in the room with a pass. He walked in the room with an opportunity. Okay? But regardless, the Democrats can't out-dove a guy who just broke publicly with his own party's hawks. And they sure as hell can't compete for that Rogan audience this week or any week, especially when their minority leader just got split from his own whip on the Israel vote. And that's why this same fight keeps surfacing everywhere we look right now. Bill Maher won't stop mocking the socialist wing of the party on his own show. And J.D. Vance did a really good job on his show. The women on The View, they're openly done water carrying for it. Okay, the crack between the old school Democratic moderates and the Mamdani socialist wing, that was already there. Vance didn't create that crack. He's just the one holding the scalpel. He knows exactly where to cut. Okay? President Trump knows what he's doing. And it's not a rally. It's not a press conference with a freedom-friendly room. It's showing up somewhere that voters can look you in the eye. And you have to tell them the truth, even when it costs you something. That's what I watched with J.D. Vance and Joe Rogan. And folks, if the Democratic Party had a single person who could do the same thing, they would have done it years ago. 3 moves, 1 podcast. The Democratic Party that still doesn't have any answers for any one of these moves. So, if you want to know what move 4 looks like, well, listen up. Because I don't think this operation is finished. And I'll be back to show you.